Good evening. My name is Buffy, and I have a podcast for women's lifestyle issues called Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress. This podcast is Gavel and Grace, where truth meets compassion. This is a true crime podcast. I did one recently on Charles Lindbergh's child's kidnapping, and this one will be about the Memphis Three. Vanished without a trace, the Memphis Three. 3 women, 1 quiet neighborhood. A graduation party, a late night return home. And then, nothing. No struggle, no witnesses, no trace. More than 30 years later, Springfield, Missouri is still asking the same haunting question. Where are the Springfield Three? The other thing that you will find about this podcast is not only am I an attorney, so I will not be saying that someone was let off on a technicality or not convicted on a technicality, but give you the potential reason why they were released if that happened. But the other thing is, I feel like we need to acknowledge that these are actual people. They're not cartoon characters. They're not characters playing in a soap opera. They're actual people, people that other people loved, people that other people cared about, and are probably still struggling with their loss. So my goal is to show compassion and kindness towards the people that have lost someone, as well as the victims themselves. Hey everyone, I'm Buffy, and this is Grace and Gavel, where we dive into real life mysteries, unravel the facts, and remind you that behind every case is a story that still deserves justice. And I'm a big proponent of justice. Today, we're exploring one of the most perplexing unsolved disappearances in American history, the Springfield Three. Sherrill Levitt, her daughter Suzy Streeter, and Suzy's best friend Stacy McCall. 3 women vanished overnight from a home just blocks from downtown Springfield, Missouri. No bodies, no crime scene, no closure. Let's rewind to June 6th, 1992. It's graduation night in Springfield, Missouri. Suzy Streeter, 19, and Stacy McCall, 18, have just walked across the stage at Kickapoo High School. They spend the evening party hopping with friends, celebrating a new chapter of life. It should have been a good chapter for them. It should have been a happy chapter. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. By around 2 a.m., the girls decide to skip a crowded sleepover and head to Suzy's house instead, 1717 East Delmar Street, where Suzy's mom, Sherrill Levitt, 47, is already home. Sherrill had worked late at a salon that night, talked to a friend on the phone around 11:15 p.m., and then likely headed to bed. The plan was simple. Crash for the night, regroup with friends the next morning for a water park trip. But when morning came, no one could reach them. By 9 a.m., friends arrived to pick them up. The front door was unlocked. All 3 cars were in the driveway. Purses, keys, cigarettes, and Cheryl's dog Cinnamon were still inside. The TV was on static. The porch light globe was shattered, glass shattered on the steps. But the women were gone. What investigators found? Detectives quickly realized this wasn't a runaway case. 3 adult women don't vanish voluntarily, leaving cash, cars, and makeup behind. Inside, the scene looked almost too normal. No blood, no broken furniture, no sign of forced entry. The unlocked door suggested the women either knew whomever entered or were caught off guard. One detail still chills investigators. A strange, obscene voicemail left on the house answering machine sometime overnight. A friend accidentally erased it before police could listen. That could have been the break they needed, and it's gone forever. Over the next days, police processed the home, gathered fingerprints, and interviewed dozens of witnesses. But unfortunately, before the home was even sealed off, more than 20 people had entered, trying to help, tidying up, even wiping down counters. Any potential evidence was destroyed. Who were they? Let's pause and remember the women behind the mystery. Sherrill Levitt was 47, a hardworking single mom, respected cosmetologist, meticulous about her home. Suzy Streeter, her daughter, was outspoken, smart, a little rebellious, but deeply loyal. Stacy McCall, Suzy's close friend, was sweet, dependable, and family-oriented. They were ordinary, relatable, like so many of us, which makes their disappearance even more haunting. Let's talk about the theories. After 3 decades, several major theories still dominate conversation. Theory 1, it was a targeted crime. Weeks earlier, Suzy had testified about a mausoleum vandalism case involving a former boyfriend, Dustin Rekla. Some believe that case connected her to dangerous people seeking revenge or intimidation. Police interviewed those involved, but never found a link strong enough for charges. Theory 2, a serial predator. Another lead points towards Larry Dwayne Hall, a convicted serial kidnapper operating across the Midwest in the early 90s. He was known to cruise small towns, abduct women, and dispose of remains in rural areas. The timeline and region fit, but nothing concrete ties him to Springfield, Missouri. Theory 3, buried beneath the garage. In 2007, a tip claimed the women were buried beneath a parking structure near Cox Hospital. But shortly after the disappearance, ground-penetrating radar showed 3 anomalies, but no excavation occurred. City officials deemed the evidence inconclusive and too costly to dig. You think about that as too costly to dig. What about the cost of the people who loved these 3 women? What about the people who are still suffering today because they don't know? That is the frustrating thing. What is the cost? Yes, there is some cost, but ultimately they were citizens of this area. Looks like people would want to find them. And just chucking it up to cost and not being worth it is really unfair. 4, opportunistic abduction. Some investigators believe it was random. Someone saw the women arrive home, waited for a moment alone, and entered through the unlocked door. The obscene call might support this theory. An early contact from the perpetrator. Each theory comes back to the same tragedy. 3 women, no remains, no proof, and families still searching for answers. What's unknown versus what's known? Known. The women were together at 1717 East Delmar in Springfield, Missouri. There's no evidence they left voluntarily. The dog was distressed, and there was no sign of struggle. So ultimately, I think we have to consider the idea that maybe they knew who their perpetrator was, or perpetrators. There were 3 of them. You think about especially a mother-daughter relationship, and even a best friend relationship. Those women were probably tight. And by tight, I mean they were loyal to each other. They probably were willing to protect each other, look after each other. And so if one person came in, wouldn't they have potentially had some issues subduing the women? The other thing you think about the dog being distressed clearly points to something happening, and the dog seeing something likely. Not that the dog can communicate with us in any way, but it's the thought there. I just go back to the idea that there was also that case with Suzy, which is the daughter, kind of makes you wonder about that. And then you think the idea maybe the friend was kind of in the wrong place at the wrong time, because if the person was going after Suzy, then they would have to harm the mother too. So when you think about that, it almost seems like there's probably more at play there. Additionally, nobody knows the exact time of their disappearance, the motive, or where they are now. And I think that the other thing you think about is sometimes serial killers, for instance, have a wide range of where they go, meaning they have a wide kind of I hate to use this term. I guess I want to say territory, like a wide territory of where they go and where they commit their crimes. So you think about that. But I do think the fact that there was no struggle points to someone that they know. Like, I think you almost have to look at maybe mom's relationships and maybe even daughters' relationships and see maybe where they coexist. And the fact that they haven't been found is really kind of concerning. But then again, I mean, they haven't even explored the option of the garage. So what's occurred since then? The Springfield Police Department and FBI have re-interviewed witnesses, chased over 5,000 tips, and continue to treat the case as open and active. In 2021, new digital billboards and DNA technology were introduced. But so far, still no break. The legacy and lessons. The case of the Springfield Three became a cautionary tale for law enforcement nationwide. How fragile a crime scene can be, how quickly public curiosity can erase critical evidence, and how trauma lingers when there's no resolution, similarly to the Lindbergh case that I did previously. But the thing you think about is the fact that how many of those people were there to intentionally affect the crime scene. Maybe they knew that there was something of theirs that could be found, and maybe they were trying to do that. I'm not saying that they were, but I mean, that's always a thing to think about. And I think especially, and this was in 92. So if you think about it, we were kind of in the midst of, I believe, or maybe a little bit before, like the OJ trial, when we actually learned what DNA was and touch DNA and all that. Because at that time, DNA meant nothing to no one, at that point, because we didn't know what we didn't know. But now DNA is a huge thing. And the other thing, too, is oftentimes people believe, no body, no crime. So, I mean, there is definitely an incentive to make sure that they're not found. But for families, the grief never ages. Stacy's mother still holds annual vigils. Neighbors still remember the porch light and the silence that followed. And new generations keep the names alive, hoping someone, somewhere, finally speaks. So, in closing, there's something haunting about a case like this. It's not just a mystery, but the void it leaves. You can almost feel the palpable, feeling of sadness and angst and aching. The Springfield Three remind us that danger isn't always cinematic. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's next door. So tonight, leave the light on, not from fear, but from awareness. And if you know something, even the smallest detail, it might be what brings them home. I'm Buffy, and this is Grace and Gavel. Stay safe, stay aware, and keep seeking the truth. Listen to Grace and Gavel. Thank you for listening to Grace and Gavel, Vanish Without a Trace. The Springfield Three, wherever you go. Actually, I'm hosting on YouTube currently, but you don't necessarily have to go to YouTube. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you'll come back and see us again soon, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.